Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Hamid and our today's topic of discussion is rheumatic fever, a very important topic for the preparation of USMLE Step 1 and Step 2. But before that, I want to explain this gram positive algorithm. This flowchart is very important for the better understanding of rheumatic fever. So we know that the bacteria are divided into gram positive and gram negative. Gram positive bacteria are those bacteria that appear purple or blue under the gram stain, and gram negative are those that appear pink under gram stain. Gram positive bacteria are further divided into three types: bacilli, which are also called rods; cocci, which are circular and branching filaments. Okay, today we will talk about cocci. Cocci are further divided into catalase positive and the catalase negative cocci. Catalase positive cocci are usually in clusters. The example is Staphylococcus. Staphylococcus is further divided into coagulase positive and coagulase negative. So catalase positive and coagulase positive Staphylococci example is Staphylococcus aureus. Catalase positive, coagulase negative are further divided on the basis of novobiosin sensitivity. Those coagulase negative but novobiosin sensitive example is Staph epidermidis. Coagulase negative, novobiosin insensitive example is Staphylococcus saprophyticus. Okay, then catalase negative. Catalase negative, the example is Streptococcus. Streptococcus, they are usually in chains. Staphylococcus are usually in clusters. Okay, pairs or chains. Okay, Streptococcus are further divided on the basis of hemolysis. Those who undergo partial hemolysis, they are called alpha hemolytic. Those who undergo complete hemolysis, they are called beta hemolytic, and those who do not undergo hemolysis or no hemolysis at all, they are called gamma hemolytic. So the example of alpha hemolytic bacteria, uh, so we'll talk about the examples of alpha, beta, and gamma hemolytic bacteria. Alpha hemolytic bacteria are further divided on the basis of optogen sensitivity and bile solubility. Those bacteria who are optogen sensitive and bile soluble, they are example is Streptococcus pneumonia. They are usually encapsulated. Alpha hemolytic bacteria which are optogen insensitive, and those who are bile insoluble, they are viridian streptococci. They have usually have no capsules. Examples are Streptococcus mutans and Streptococcus mitis. Okay, so now beta hemolytic bacteria, which is very important, which is related to our today's topic, rheumatic fever. Okay, so beta hemolytic bacteria are those bacteria which undergo complete hemolysis. What are the examples of beta hemolytic bacteria? Here they have given two examples. There are two more examples that come under the category of beta hemolysis. Okay, so beta hemolytic bacteria are further divided on the basis of bacitracin sensitivity and PYR status. Those bacteria who are bacitracin sensitive and PYR status positive, they are called group A beta hemolytic bacteria. Example is Streptococcus pyogenes. Okay, those who are bacitracin insensitive and the PYR status is negative, they are called group B beta hemolytic bacteria. Example is Streptococcus agalexia. Okay, so why this is related to our rheumatic fever? Because the most common cause of rheumatic fever is group A beta hemolytic bacteria, which is Streptococcus pyogenes. Okay, group A beta hemolytic bacteria example is Streptococcus pyogenes is the most common cause of rheumatic fever, and it causes rheumatic fever usually 2 to 4 weeks after pharyngitis. Okay, now um, we will talk about group A beta hemolytic bacteria, which is Streptococcus pyogenes. We'll talk about Streptococcus pyogenes before we jump into rheumatic fever, which is our today's topic. Okay, now I want to give you two more examples of beta hemolytic bacteria. The first is group A beta hemolytic bacteria, Streptococcus pyogenes. The second is group B beta hemolytic bacteria, which is Streptococcus agalexia. The third is Staph aureus, and the fourth is Listeria monocytogenes. These are the four major, most important examples of beta hemolysis. Okay, Now we will talk about Streptococcus pyogenes, okay, which is the cause of rheumatic fever. So Streptococcus pyogenes is a group A beta-hemolytic bacteria. It is bacitracin sensitive, and the PYR status is positive. Okay, which this is the full information you should remember. Okay, so Streptococcus pyogenes is a gram-positive cocci in chains. From the name, it shows it is in chains because Streptococcus are usually in chains. Group A strep. Okay, what are um, the pathogenic conditions related to Streptococcus pyogenes? So there are three types of Streptococcus pyogenes. The first is pyogenic, the second is toxigenic, and the third is immunologic. The first is pyogenic type, which causes pharyngitis. The second, and it also causes cellulitis, impetigo, which is honey crusted lesions, and it also causes erysipelas. So pyogenic type causes pharyngitis as well as skin infections. Skin infections include cellulitis, impetigo, and erysipelas. Toxicogenic, toxic, toxigenic type of Streptococcus pyogenes causes scarlet fever, toxic shock-like syndrome, and necrotizing fasciitis. Immunologic type causes rheumatic fever and glomerulonephritis. So here I want to emphasize one very important thing which you guys should remember, that Streptococcus pyogenes, it causes two important conditions, two important immunologic conditions. The one is rheumatic fever and the second is glomerulonephritis. We will talk about rheumatic fever today, and we will talk about glomerulonephritis in the next lecture. Okay, so um, Streptococcus pyogenes causes rheumatic fever after, usually after, pharyngeal infections, only after pharyngeal infections, and not after skin infections. Okay, not after cellulitis, impetigo, or erysipelas. But it can cause glomerulonephritis after both pharyngeal and skin infections. Okay, so this is very important thing you should remember, that group A beta hemolytic streptococci, which is Streptococcus pyogenes, it causes rheumatic fever usually after the pharyngeal infections. Usually, the pyogenic type, which causes pharyngitis, it can lead to rheumatic fever after 2 to 4 weeks. But rheumatic fever cannot happen after skin infections like cellulitis, impetigo, or erysipelas. Okay, but it can lead to glomerulonephritis both after pharyngitis or skin infections. Okay, so in the simple words, just remember that rheumatic fever usually happens after pharyngitis, and the glomerulonephritis can happen after both pharyngitis and skin infections, which is important to remember. Okay, now we have already talked about this, that they are Streptococcus pyogenes are bacitracin sensitive, they are beta hemolytic, they are pyrrolidonyl limidase positive, PYR positive, hyaluronic acid capsule, and M protein inhibits phagocytosis. Now, this is important. M protein is important. How and why Streptococcus pyogenes causes rheumatic fever? The pathogenesis is related to M protein. Okay, so what is M protein? Basically, AM protein is expressed by Streptococcus pyogenes, and it helps them to prevent phagocytosis. It is their defense mechanism. Through AM protein, they protect themselves. Okay, so what happens is there is a, a sequence homology. What happens is when there is a pharyngeal infection, and the antibodies are produced against M proteins because Streptococcus pyogenes is causing pharyngeal infections. So the M and those Streptococcus pyogenes has M proteins. So usually the antibodies, our body produces antibodies against the M proteins, and our cardiac myosin is similar to M protein. There is a molecular mimicry between M protein of a Streptococcus pyogenes and our cardiac myosin. So that is the pathogenesis that leads to rheumatic fever. Okay. So here it says that antibodies to M protein enhance host defenses against Streptococcus pyogenes, but can give rise to rheumatic fever. Okay, and pharyngitis is usually diagnosed via throat swab, and we also do blood cultures and blood agar to diagnose pharyngitis. Okay, now we will talk about rheumatic fever. Now let's talk about rheumatic fever. It is a consequence of pharyngeal infection with group A Beta-Hemolytic Streptococci, which is Streptococcus pyogenes. Usually happens 2 to 4 weeks after pharyngeal infection. Okay, the major criteria is Jones. You should remember this Jones criteria. What would be the patient presentation? They will usually present with migratory polyarthritis. Sometimes they have pain in their knees, knee joint pain, then it could be elbow joint pain or pain in the shoulders. So this is the migratory polyarthritis. Multiple joints will be involved and the pain will shift from one joint to another joint. Second is carditis, usually myocarditis. Okay, and due to this carditis, it can lead to involvement of heart valves. First they involve mitral valve, and then the aortic valve, and then tricuspid valve. So the basic thing to remember is usually they involve the high pressure valves. High pressure valves are mostly affected. For example, mitral and the aortic valves, these are the most commonly affected valves. And first they lead to involvement of valve, first lead to regurgitation, and then they lead to valvular stenosis. Okay, third finding is nodules in the skin, usually subcutaneous nodules. The fourth finding is erythema marginatum. Erythema marginatum is a evanescent rash with ring margin, a very like a rash that usually disappears easily. So this is in erythema marginatum. Okay, on the foot. So, and then the third finding is sydenham chorea. These are the involuntary irregular movements of limbs and face. So these are the major criteria to diagnose rheumatic fever. They are usually associated with Ashoff bodies and NHCO cells. You should learn about these things as well. Okay, the antibodies which are usually positive in rheumatic fever are anti-streptolysin O antibodies and anti-DNase B antibodies. These are usually high, increased in their levels are usually increased in the blood in rheumatic fever. The rheumatic fever is usually a type 2 hypersensitivity reaction, and I've already told you about M protein that cross react with the self antigens, often myosin. That mechanism is called molecular mimicry. So rheumatic fever is very important to diagnose for your step 1, step 2. What is the most uh, first line treatment for rheumatic fever is penicillin. Okay, penicillin is the first line treatment for pharyngeal infections as well as for rheumatic fever. Okay, I think that is it for today. This diagram A shows ash of bodies and NHCO cells. Okay, you should remember this histopathology diagram is not really important. Um, but the Jones criteria is very important. You should remember the causing agent of rheumatic fever. You should remember that it is a type 2 hypersensitivity reaction. You should remember the pathogenesis, which is related to M protein, molecular mimicry. You should also remember that group A beta hemolytic streptococci is streptococcus pyogenes, the beta hemolytic. Also remember the other examples of beta hemolytic bacteria, which includes streptococcus egglechium, Staph aureus, and Listeria monocytogenes. So these are the important things you should remember for your steps preparation.